people assimilating, taking over, handling banks, money, commerce, selling slaves. They happen to be Moors, Jews, conversos, some of them. All right. You know, all right. Tree of Life, Fan Tree, St. Cloud. All right. So now we see two symbols, right? What are these two symbols on the top? We see the Star of David and the crescent moon, right? Wouldn't that be like a so-called Hebrew or Jewish symbol and a so-called Muslim Islamic symbol together?
Yes, sir.
Well, aren't they at war today all the time, supposedly?
That's what they tell us.
All right. So now I want people to notice something. Now, what I noticed, what Mikio and what a new breed pointed out to me, Mikio, while we were first encountering this book.
Yes, sir. Big ups
Right.
to brother Anu.
Yeah, big ups to Anu, because he likes to take it biblical a lot of the time. And so now, what we saw was, see 7 branches, right? 7 main branches, right? So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then we got 10 like crest or family arms or like heads, right? Or the other way around, right? But now what does that remind you of? We're talking about 7 and 10. Now remember what Huguenot means. Remember what a Huguenot means. Remember a confederacy, conspirators, a camaraderie, an oath, camaraderie. All right, so in Revelation, in the book of Revelation, we read the beast. What is the beast? How is the beast described in Revelation?
Oh, well, what's that? 7 heads? And what was that? How many crowns did he have?
Has something to do with 10 and 7, right? 7 heads, 10 horns. Look at that.
Oh, that's it.
All right. 7 branches, 10 coat of arms. You see 10 stars, right? You count 8 stars in the flag, and then you count the 2 on the top. That's 10.
And those 2 on the top represent what? Control of everything of those branches, right?
The control of all these branches, the head. What is the origin, right?
Exactly.
Okay. All right, so we're going to continue now. Now, this book, I found this in Google Books, and I also found it in archive.org. Sephardim in the New World had a wide variety of occupations and lived at all levels of this socio-economic spectrum. According to Marcus, they were shoemakers, tailors, blacksmiths, tavern keepers, peddlers, mariners, masons, ship captains, factors, and I'm going to add pirates, barkers, gold, silversmiths, butchers, tanners, physicians, notaries, mine and mill owners, merchant, candy manufacturers, candy land, slave dealers, city mayors, priests, bishops, bankers, tax collectors, and provincial governors. Judaic religious traditions were usually observed in private. They were secret. Worship services were held in the homes of anyone where a group would gather on Shabbat. Because no copies of the Torah were available, these secret Sephardim would use the biblical Old Testament and the Psalms, sometimes also books like Josephus' Ancient History of the Jews, their boy Josephus. All right.
You know what's funny too? That whole list that you just read off of all their positions.
Yeah.
It don't seem like they ever left them. They're still there to this day.
Oh yeah, they're the ones controlling all those professions. Yep. Immigration patterns in Virginia after 1624 suggest an even stronger picture of the Sephardic Morisco presence. The aptly named Abraham, leaving London in 1635, had on board Walter Pickett, Henry Dobell, Alexander Simmons, and Simon Farrell. See Appendix C. The David that same year carried Robert Alsop, Robert Barron, Baron Baroon, and Gautret, Levi, Leviticus, Levi, the Bonaventure, 1635, listed as passengers, among other, Basil, Greek Basil, sounds like Brazil, right? Book, Hebrew anagram, Robert Perry, James Messier, and Thomas Hyatt, Arabic Hebrew for tailor, each bearing a Sephardic surname. More and more persons of likely Sephardic and Morisco descent continued to arrive. The Elizabeth, 1635 of London carried John Bagby, George Travis, example, from Treves and Alsace, and Ellen Shore, Hebrew shore, bull, related to the name Joseph. The Globe, also in 1635, brought Robert Copin, diminutive of Jacob, William Savoy, Michelle Hames, and Anne Levians, which seem obvious enough not to call for comment, and the Alice had on board Robert Hagara and Sophia Rodriguez, all right, Rodriguez in 1700, several boatloads of Huguenots, several boatloads of Huguenot refugees arrived in Virginia from England. Many of these persons were likely Sephardic or Morisco or Moors ancestry. And you thought they were pale skinned this whole time. You thought it was just a bunch of French people, bunch of nobodies. There are other strong cues regarding Byrd's ancestry and religious leanings. Hatch states that Byrd regarded Catholics as but one degree above the devils from hell. In 1699, when the Huguenots were under attack once again by Catholic monarchs, it was William Byrd of Virginia who championed their cause. About 300 of them were brought to safety in Virginia, and another 200 in the following year, largely as a result of the arguments presented by William Byrd to the boards of trade. Between 700 and 800 Huguenots settled in Virginia. Such activities are in complete conformity with the efforts begun in the late 1500s by Raleigh and Drake to settle their Sephardic and Morisco kinsmen. Like I said, all kinfolk ain't kinfolk, right? That's Drake's kinsman. Is that your kinsman too? Because that's Francis Drake's kinsman in the New World. Both Raleigh and Drake had assisted the Huguenots in France before and after the infamous St. Bartholomew Day massacre in 1572. In the 1705 edition of his history, Robert Beverly wrote of the goodness and generosity of Colonel Byrd toward these distressed Huguenots. Beverly goes on to say, Laborie knows that it was the Huguenots who brought the Jewish Moorish craft of silver working to Massachusetts in 1685. Again, who brought that over here? The Jewish Moorish craft? The Huguenots, right? AKA Jewish Moors. Among these best known were Jeremiah Doomer. Again, Jeremiah, Hebrew name. Dumas, John Connie, and who? Paul Revere. We already got that. Paul Revere, the Huguenot. All three of these bear French Sephardic surnames. Another culturally prominent settler was Nathaniel Ames, medieval English Jewish surname from Amos, who simultaneously practiced medicine, ran a tavern, and published an almanac. Even the man with whom Paul Revere rode. Listen to this. Even the man with whom Paul Revere rode. Now remember, this is supposed to be a so-called black man that Paul Revere rode with in history, that they just recently letting us know. So even his boy that he rode with, his Jewish Sephardic or Moorish boy, who was a Huguenot, rode to warn the British arrival for, in 1775, bore a Sephardic surname, Dawes, as already pointed out, a derivative of David Dawes. All right.